Yeah, everybody's here. All right. And so yeah, 3 more minutes.
No problem.
Yeah, we're hitting 9:05. Can you hear me?
Good. Need me a test? Everybody's good. I got me.
Sure, the right side of the flag. 1 minute.
1 minute, everybody.
Minute 30.
Minute 30. All right, good evening, everybody. Sheriff Joe Lopinto here with the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. Unfortunately, I'm here to announce the arrest of 2 of our officers tonight. We're arresting Isaac Hughes and Jonathan Lewis, 2 of our members that were involved in the Deputy Vallee shooting from last week. I want to give you some of the scenario of what occurred last week. Around 2:15 a.m. on the 16th, our officers were dispatched to the 500 block of Wilson Street in Marrero. Upon their arrival, they were encountering a gentleman in front of a known crack house. They were there for the sole reason to really investigate a noise complaint from the next door neighbor. Unfortunately, this neighbor has been threatened by this group of individuals in a crack house for years to come, and she was being disturbed at that point in time. Mr. Daniel Vallee was in a vehicle in front of that location. Mr. Vallee was in a vehicle that had a switch plate. Unbeknownst to my officers at that time, was also wanted for questioning in reference to some thefts out of Plaquemines Parish and also in reference to an overdose investigation out of Gretna. He refused to cooperate with our officers, refused to cooperate with them for over 12 minutes. Our deputies on the scene, which included 5 total officers, were on scene. Not only did they ask him to get out of the vehicle so they could investigate the crimes that were there, plus the additional crimes that were happening or that he was investigating for, they asked him, they begged him, they threatened him, trying to get him to come out. He refused to cooperate during that period of time. The vehicle was running at one point in time. which he actually turned the vehicle off and locked the vehicle doors. Kept putting his hands up but would not cooperate and would not come outside the vehicle. After this going on for almost 12 minutes or so, Mr. Vallee decided to start the vehicle back up. That, of course, escalated the situation. Numerous of my deputies drew their weapons at that point in time, expecting them to try to take off. They begged for him to turn the vehicle off, to not put the vehicle in drive, to not put them in this situation. I can tell you, I believe without a doubt, they believed he was going to drive off at that point in time. Had one officer that was positioned directly in front of the vehicle, and another one that was positioned just off to the side in front of the vehicle also. At one point in time, Mr. Vallee drops his hands. When he drops his hands, he actually hits the horn on the vehicle. In my opinion, that horn, whether it scares my deputy or whether my deputy reacts to the shot of the horn, ends up firing his weapon. That in turn, the second deputy fired his weapons, reacting to that gunfire. I had both those deputies fired those gunshots in reaction to that. They both cooperated. We interviewed the non-shooters the day after that interview, waited for the autopsy to be conducted the following day, and then interviewed the other shooters on Thursday. We've gone back and forth through that. I can tell you their perception was that their life was in danger at that point in time. Unfortunately, the use of force in this situation was not justified. As much as I would love to be able to defend them, I don't believe there was any criminal intent at this point in time. We've had numerous discussions with our office, with our investigators, in order to try to figure out what is the appropriate charge. Let's face it, there's four things that could have happened today. Could have been a second-degree murder, a manslaughter, a negligent homicide, or a justified homicide. And we weighed them all out. And to be honest with you, I can make arguments for all four. Our investigators really looked at the evidence that existed. None of them lied in their investigation. They came in, told the truth. The body cam video actually backed up what their statements were. It wasn't a situation where it was a gotcha moment. They came in and said what happened. Unfortunately, we just can't utilize the actions that they did and justify the use of deadly force. I think force was certainly justified. And unfortunately, this gentleman, Daniel Vallee, put them in a huge, highly stressful situation where bad things can happen, and that's what happened in this case. We presented a manslaughter warrant to the commissioner tonight for both of our officers, which was signed earlier today. Both of the officers turned themselves in to the Investigation Bureau and are being booked accordingly in the Jefferson Parish Correctional Center. They'll obviously have to defend the charge, and truthfully, as their defense, there is a defense here. We just believe that the level of force that was used justified the probable cause that existed in this case, and our detectives really did a good job of delving into those facts and making it happen. With that, y'all, I'll take any questions that you have. It's gonna be in a release that we'll give to you in a minute, but it's Jonathan Lewis and Isaac Hughes.
Have you ever determined at all whether Vallee was armed or had any?
No, Vallee was not armed, and that was never the testimony. I mean, he was obviously armed with the vehicle, but the vehicle never made it to drive. I think the dropping of his hands where they couldn't see it, in connection with blowing the horn at someone that was standing 5 feet in front of you at the time, caused the reaction that occurred. But being armed was never I mean, obviously it was a potential threat, but it was never a threat that was observed.
And Sheriff, how many times?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you know how many times the officer shot?
I'm sure my investigators know that answer, but I don't. I mean, each one of them shot multiple times.
And Sheriff, how are you feeling at this point in time?
I'm disappointed. I mean, disappointed on both sides, right? I mean, the fact of it is, being a former policeman, I know that they have a very tough job to do. This was certainly not intentional. It's not a criminal act, and I think that's why second-degree murder certainly wasn't the case. Mr. Vallee had every opportunity to comply, to cooperate. He's been in and out of jail. The system, is not perfect by any means. The force was something that was, there was force that was certainly justified at this moment, but it wasn't deadly force. And it's something that, it's never fun to put one of my deputies in jail. I've had to do it before, and I probably will have to do it again. But that the remorse exists, right? And it's whether or not probable cause exists. And in this case, we felt the probable cause did exist. It's never something that I want to do. It's certainly not what I want to do at 9 o'clock at night here in front of the Investigation Bureau. As I said before, they've worked very hard over the past week and over the weekend to make sure we get this right. And I'm proud of my detectives for doing the work that we do. And look, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office does a lot of good work out there. They're out there trying to make us safe every single day. This is an extremely unfortunate situation for all of them. For the wife and kids of my deputies, and certainly the Vallee family that lost a loved one also. It doesn't take that pain away, no matter what it is. I think this fault that you can blame everybody, but we still have to be responsible for our actions. It's a criminal investigation. No, I mean, it will be released, certainly, right? I mean, with any type of criminal investigation, once the criminal investigation is complete, whether that's, turned over to the defense in this case, I mean, it will be part of our investigation. And once that criminal investigation is over, it certainly will be released, but not at this time. I mean, I wouldn't do that for any criminal investigation.
Body cams are a recent addition here. How much did they play a role in this
I mean, I knew that this is our first shooting with a body camera, but it's not our first shooting on cameras, right? I mean, we've had cameras, videotape our shootings pretty often. One being in the Times-Picayune warehouse years ago, right? And so, that's not something that's unusual in today's environment. What I thought was appropriate is the body cameras backed up the statements of the deputies. I mean, it wasn't a situation where the body camera showed something different than the perceptions that existed. It's just whether that perception was accurate, So, I mean, that's what it comes down to. So, I mean, it's always nice to have the body camera. I mean, but, in this case, it obviously is a little bit different, but I don't think it's that big of a difference. We certainly had cameras from the next door neighbor's house, and the facts backed up what was being said. So, I mean, it's nice to have them by all means, and will certainly be part of the evidence.
Does this become a teachable moment for the rest of the deputies?
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, look, tactics can always be better. That's something that, I wish, look, you can always second guess it. You can always hindsight it. You can always sit there and say you should have, would have, could have, and been in a better position, a better place, or made different options. But those things happen quickly out there sometimes, and this is one of those cases that it happened quickly sometimes.
Sheriff, you mentioned that this was a known crack house. There was some been complaining for years that we talked to. Why haven't you shut it down?
I wish I could. I mean, look, I mean, we've had 130 something calls in the last year in that 100 block, not necessarily at that house.
Have you arrested the guy that lives there?
I don't know if we've arrested. I mean, well, let me put it this way. I think the night of the event, when we actually exited the house, there was 12 people inside the house, right? I wish I had the ability to take a house and arresting is one thing, but when they own the house, that's our biggest problem in narcotics, because I don't have the ability to take that house after the fact, right? I wish I had that ability, and I wish the legislature would do something to allow that to happen. Let us seize the house that has become a problem, put it in code enforcement. But if we don't have any code violations, the most that I can do is arrest individuals when we have it. So we certainly have made cases there in the past. We will certainly make cases there in the future. I mean, it's just, that's a problem that exists, and I wish I had the answers. And if y'all want to go sit out in front with a camera every single day and film it, it's a problem, but we've got 400,000 citizens that we have to try to account for on an everyday basis. And, I wish I had the ability to sit there and shut some of those things down. Look, I can't prevent all crime, and I feel sorry for the neighbors that are around there, because we'll get called out often and often. We'll make the cases, but we're still bound by making the cases that we have probable cause to make.
Has a toxicology report revealed that Vallee was on any drugs?
I'm sorry?
Has a toxicology report
You know, I think there's preliminary and there's a regular toxicology report that will come later. From what I'm under the impression is this: there was toxicology that was positive for several drugs. I have not seen that report, but I was told that he was positive for several drugs in the preliminary report. But I'll let the coroner's office, you know, get the full report to document that. But I'm under the impression it was yes.
Were there any drugs found on his person or in his car?
I don't think so. I was out there on the scene that night. I know I smelled marijuana coming out of the car, but I don't believe we recovered any. So I don't know if they had, you know, recently smoked or somebody else was in the vehicle, but I don't think we recovered any marijuana in the car.
A switchblade, you said?
What's that?
Just a blade, right?
A switch plate? A switch plate? No, I didn't say blade.
Oh.
No, a switch plate maybe I said? Yeah. License plate. Yeah, license plate. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, switch. Yeah, switch license plate. Yes.
Where did you say his prior crimes were committed? Plaquemines Parish?
So he had, at the time that he was stopped, they had just recently issued a bolo. Be on the lookout for his vehicle for some thefts of some four-wheelers, I believe, out of Plaquemines Parish. And earlier, a couple days earlier, they had him and his vehicle on another bolo out of Gretna in reference to a overdose of an individual that they were looking to investigate him on that also. Yeah.